The title of the show is Close to Home, and it's not something that was preconceived before I started making the works. It was something that came right at the end. Close to home is a phrase which, of course, simultaneously means things that are very close to us, that are physically close to us, but it's also something that is kind of painfully personal, and that pretty much sums up these works. It refers to our shared experience of living through these times, through these corona times, where we are all forced to look close to home, and we're all forced to question what home is and where home is. The themes in the show are things which are very close to me, very personal to me, and one thing that's very personal to me is painting and art history. So I grew up around that. Both my parents were painters, and I was surrounded by art history since I could remember. So just as much as these people are close to me, so is art. So is art history. 20th century expressionist painting is something that I grew up around, and it's always surrounded me. So this idea of expressive personal portraits is something that I have kind of had very close to my heart since I can remember. It's also important to say that this is how I started making art. This is my background. You know, my dad was taking me to life drawing classes when I was 8-9 years old, and I started with that very simple approach of looking at a figure and responding, and that's my background in making art. So often in a time of kind of painterly crisis, or where I feel not grounded in the studio, it's a great place to return to. It reminds me why I started painting in the first place, and that's quite an important thing to be reminded of. I often say that for me, painting is like chasing a ball, and the ball is made up of kind of your fears, your desires, stories you've heard, things that have happened to you. Making a show is kind of a lot like making a painting, which is that it's very, very rare that it's kind of preconceived. It's more one thing leads to another. During the process of making, you can clearly see a kind of line that runs through all the paintings. I often say, I imagine it's like how a musician might make an album, that kind of track number 1 and track number 7 might be quite different, but when you listen to the album, there's a line that runs through all of them, and there's a kind of circularity that connects everything together. So it's very much kind of one body of work. Babylon is actually the name of a bar in Stockholm. But I like that it has this weight in a kind of historical sense. The actual reference is a very personal reference. The flowers are very personal, specific flowers, which refer to a moment in my life in a bar in Stockholm. But I like the fact that it's non-essential to know that, and I like the name Babylon. It's so heavy and it's so weighted. It simultaneously is very specific, but it contains this kind of huge openness. It's the same as a bunch of flowers, you know. It can be something very simple, but it can kind of be something massive as well. I'm not interested in doing something that is kind of confusing, that needs a long text to understand. I want the works to be welcoming and inviting, but I would hope that once they're there, the journey kind of continues on, and it has some sort of effect on thinking about their own lives and what's important to them. Even though the paintings are physically quite dark in the show, with areas of light, I feel that it's quite a positive show. I feel that it's an exhibition that is about love, and that is about examining the importance of what's close to home.